Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, depending on where you are right now. This is John Richardson speaking with you from Toronto, Canada, in my latest podcast, part of my ongoing series of podcasts for the American Expat Financial News Journal. My guest today, I'm pleased to welcome Peggy Creveling, who is part of the American husband and wife couple who are the founders and key executives of the Bangkok, Thailand-based financial advisory firm known as Creveling and Creveling since they founded it in 2006. They're a bit unusual in the world of financial advice for having both graduated from the well-known American Military Academy of West Point, which is where they met and which is what drew them overseas initially, although I'm told that Chad already had a passion for traveling. As some of you may know, West Point graduates are obliged to spend some time with the military after they graduate. And for Peggy and Chad, this led them to Asia and then to more exotic places like Bangkok, where they have been for a number of years. So let's get started. First of all, hello from Toronto. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, John. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, this is a great pleasure and a great opportunity. Maybe we can just sort of begin, set the stage here. Can you take us quickly through how you ended up as experienced and wealth managers in Bangkok? What's the road to how you got there?
Sure, yeah. So we were U.S. Army officers, as you mentioned. And in leaving the Army, my husband had an internship at Stanford Business School in Bangkok. And once he was in Bangkok, he said, hey, things are booming. This was 1993. And there were some big calls being made by strategists saying to buy Asia. And so it was quite an exciting time to be there. And he said, we like Thai food anyway. What do you think? You want to try a year in Thailand. And I was very interested in doing that. We had always wanted to live somewhere overseas. And so I said, okay, yeah, let's try a year. And so 30 years later, we're there. We did start at that time in what's called institutional finance or institutional equity research, working for big multinational banks. So, different names, some of them no longer exist, but I was with Paribas Asia Equity, which is part of BNP now, and then later Salomon Brothers and then Citibank. And my husband was with some of the French banks, so Credit Ag, Indus Suez, and then started some entrepreneurship as well. And so that was the institutional side where our clients were fund managers and we were providing equity research to the fund managers. At some point, we had done that for a number of years and thought, let's try something different. And that was when we started looking into different ideas. And one of them was actually to do private client work to actually help individual clients. And that was born of a number of things. One of them being I'd been cold called any number of times as a Citibank director by people trying to sell me, offshore products in the Isle of Man. And I knew that was a bad idea for Americans. I had never looked at the things that they were selling people. But as I started to understand what they were, I realized they probably aren't a good idea for anybody. And we realized there really was a need for somebody to step into that, arena and start to give individual expat households good advice as to, what to do financially, because obviously there's a number of complexities. So that's how we kind of transitioned over. We decided to leave the institutional world. And as you say, we started our company, regulated in Thailand as was required. We were the first ever company to do that and become actually regulated as a Thai company. And we're also regulated by the U.S. SEC. And that was back in 2006. And so we've been working with private clients ever since.
So that's a lot of stuff. So in a nutshell, what you did is you stopped giving your best advice to institutions and started giving your best advice to individuals. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay, I wonder, I'm very interested in your, the fact that you have this West Point connection, partly because it's interesting, partly because I know somebody else in the financial world with a West Point connection, and partly because a former professor of mine ended his teaching career at West Point. And you're I'm curious, first of all, what attracted you to West Point?
Yeah, we went in the 1980s. So my husband Chad is class of 1986, and I'm class of 1988. At the time that we were attending West Point, that was during kind of a Reagan era boom in spending on the military, and so there was quite a lot of excitement coming out of a long period of maybe depression in the U.S. military from left over from the Vietnam War. But it was almost like the sun had risen again, and so much was going on, and so it's kind of an exciting time. And there are a lot of movies and things that were, being made to kind of attract people. And I heard about West Point from actually my dad, who watched a program called Women at West Point about the first class that graduated in 1980, and I started looking into it. And one of the things that also attracted me, besides all of that, was I learned that there was an honor code at West Point, and that was to a young, optimistic person that was very attractive to me. I really felt like that was almost a clincher for me. Was that, look, these guys stand for something. This matters. Your word matters. And so the cadet honor code: a cadet will not lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate those who do, was something that I thought, those were words that I would like to live under, a code I'd like to live by. So that was an additional thing for me. And I think my husband was also attracted by the fact that a lot of the early astronauts had gone to West Point. There was no Air Force back then. And he followed very much the space program. And so he thought that would also be something very exciting for him.
So it would seem to me that, you focus on the honor code. It would seem to me that that's something, a set of principles that you would bring into your life as a financial advisor, financial planner. I mean, that seems to me to be largely what it's about, isn't it?
I definitely think trust is a big, big honor. Trust. Yeah, your word should matter. Similar, an analogy to the Army, but on the battlefield, right? You have to trust the people around you, that they're giving you good advice. You have to trust they're going to do what they say they're going to do. And those are often life and death situations. Now, obviously, finance and what we do now isn't of that significance, but it's very important, I think, that, if you're entering into a relationship as an advisor, that you do, that your word matters, that you care, that you are actually trying to do the right thing. And so, yeah, I'd say that is a good background, I think, to come from, to enter into this kind of work.
So, I mean, that's the sort of a character, a background that you bring to this, and I think that this is key. Okay, the character aspect of this, but there's also sort of the technical, the educational. Now, my understanding is that you graduated from West Point with a Bachelor of Science in Engineering. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
I read on your website that both you and Chad are both have the CFA designation as well. Am I right on that?
Yes, we have the CFA and also the U.S. CFP. So we have those two.
Okay, so the CFA, as I understand it, is an internationally recognized, really the gold standard, isn't it?
It's been called the gold standard by The Economist magazine. Yeah, it is. It's you'll see CFA after portfolio managers' names often if you look at prospectus for a fund. Yeah, it is. It's an excellent program.
That stands
we were lucky.
CFA, that's Chartered Financial Analyst. Is that what that is?
That's what that is, Chartered Financial Analyst.
And how does that? First of all, how do you get that? I mean, I understand that that's. They don't hand those things out for a few dollars. I understand there's a real process, some rigorous exams to achieve that. What's involved in achieving that?
Yeah, it's changed a bit as the program has grown. In the day that we did it, back in the day, we were doing it in the years, say 1993 through, I think, 1996. It was basically 3 years. Maybe we took the first exam in 94. So you would have to take an exam a year at that time. And most of it was handwritten. And each exam was 6 hours a day, and 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon, and then you'd have to wait to see if you passed, and then you'd study for the next year's exam. And during the 3 years that you were taking the exams, assuming you were passing all of them, which is not normal. People don't normally pass them all in a row.
What is the percentage pass rate on
The
those?
pass rates, it varies year to year. In the years that we took it, I think the first year was very low. I want to say 25% pass rate for the first year. I think it varied anywhere between 25% and 50% in any given year. So back to back, if you're trying to, you can do the math there, but if you're trying to do it 3 years in a row, it's not a lot of people can get through that. And in the meantime, you're working. It's intended to be done as well. Back then, it was intended certainly to be done as self-study. I think now you can actually do it as college coursework and as part of college coursework, but you still need to have a work experience in order to finally, you can pass all the exams, but you need 3 years of working, I believe, to get the actual CFA. So it's an excellent program. Anyone listening who has interest in it, I would highly recommend it. That was one of the best pieces of advice I got when I first arrived in Bangkok, was from someone who said, you should do the CFA. And I never regretted that.
So you're doing this in the years 93 to 96. You arrived in Bangkok in 93, is that correct? Or around 1993?
Yeah, I think I arrived. Chad was there on his internship, his Stanford internship, and he extended his time there in the summer of 93, I think. And I joined him in, I believe it was November of 93. So then we took the first exam in 94 and 95, 96.
Okay. And just one other question on this. How does this differ from the, what is the CFP, Chartered Financial Planner? What's the difference?
Certified, yeah. So we also have, certified financial planner is much more tied up with local regulation and about financial planning rather than investing. And so we do have that as well in the United States. And a lot of the CFP will be looking at specifically financial planning. What does that mean? How do you do this? And then also very specific rules and regulations, tax law, how markets work, whether it's bond markets or stock markets or whatever. So there's some crossover between the two, but they are very different programs with a different goal in mind in terms of the information or the education that they're hoping to convey. And the CFP is regulated. So there'll be a CFP in the U.S. There's also one in Thailand, and that's why we don't put CFP after our name, because the one in Thailand is copyrighted. So even though they're part of the same umbrella, we can't claim to have the Thai CFP. We do not have that. We have the U.S. CFP. So we do have it, and it's, and that's verifiable, but we can't put it after our name.
Right. Okay. Well, the of the two, the CFA is by far the more rigorous and difficult to achieve. Am I right on that?
I found the CFA to be an excellent program, and the CFP in different ways. But I would say if I had to choose between the two, I'm very happy to have the CFA, even though what I do is financial planning. I think the thought process, the judgment, the knowledge base, I think is really excellent.
So really the difference is the CFP is how to be a financial planner. The CFA is what specifically should you be invested in?
CFA is broader than that, but yes, portfolio management or portfolio advice is part of that. Economics is part of that. Legal and ethics is part of the CFA. Things like asset allocation, also very specific investing, like stock investing. How do you analyze an individual company? What makes an individual company interesting fundamentally? So it's the fixed income, the whole fixed income market and bonds, all of that. So there's a distinct set of studies that go into the CFA, and investing is certainly, or portfolios is certainly part of it.
Right. All right. So from 93 to 96, you're working institutionally, you're doing the CFA. And then at the end of this period, you decided to transfer your knowledge base of what you were doing away from the institutions and to the individuals. And you found Creveling, is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. So in, I think about 2004, 2005, we started talking with the Thai regulator, the Thai Securities and Exchange Commission, about whether we could do this. And we had a lot of encouragement from a large law firm in Thailand who was sick of also being cold called by people selling, dubious offshore products. And he was very encouraging of us to try to do this because you could see we had all the credentials that it would be required, and the knowledge and the background. And so we worked together to get that what's called a Borisat Laksap, a securities company license in Thailand, which at that time was unheard of, that foreigners, we were often told you can't do it, but the Thais did, after a lot of discussion about what it was that we wanted to do. For them, it was a new business model. They didn't know about fee-only financial planning. They didn't know about, this type of thing. And so a lot of discussion, but after about, I think 18 months, we were able to get our license and begin operating.
So it seems to me this is also tied to a general, we want to stay in Thailand, we like it here decision.
Yes, I would say that's true. Yes.
And what does he like about being in Thailand, Bangkok?
Well, the first day I arrived in November of 1993, and I was meeting up with Chad. He was still working on that internship. He just extended it for a while. I had the day off, and I walked around the city. And at the end of the day, I met him back where we were staying, and I realized that my face hurt. And I started to think about it, and I thought, I'd been smiling all day, and that is no joke. I had been smiling all day, and I realized that I really felt comfortable with Thai people. We already liked Thai food, but I really felt, and I've kind of been told this as well, that, that kind of fit in there to some degree. I'll never be Thai, of course, but maybe the Midwestern part of me kind of went well with Thailand at that time. It was very exciting. I mean, there's a lot going on. We both, it was a really exciting time. Asia was, the little tigers were just being kind of discovered by the fund management world. We had continual stream of fund managers coming through. We went marketing to London, to New York, to see Templeton in Florida, to go California, Hong Kong, Singapore, all of that, to see the fund managers. And of course, we're always visiting Thai companies, which was really fascinating. You really got to meet senior management at the companies and learn about what it was that they were trying to achieve, and so it was just an exciting time all around.
So you're starting off doing a lot of institutional research for the fund managers.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I think it's amazing that you just sort of transitioned over to, hey, we're going to transfer our expertise and skill set to help individuals. How do you actually do that, in the sense of, you're going from, I presume, a predictable, reasonable income stream, and you reinvent yourself and wake up one day as Creveling and Creveling, independent financial advisors or whatever.
Yeah. Well, we've changed hats many times. There's some basic principles that do hold true. For me, I was an Army intelligence officer, and so my skills were in analyzing what's going on the battlefield and trying to make a call to the consumer, who would be, whoever the infantry or the guy on the ground commander is. What's the enemy doing? Is he advancing? Is he retreating? Is he holding in place? And why? Right. So, that kind of analysis you kind of carry over into equity research as well. Is this company, is it a buy? Is it a sell? Should you keep it, and why? Right. So then when you get to the individual level, the household, you're kind of looking at things a little bit like that as well. The basic structure of what you're trying to advise is, okay, this household looks a little bit like a company in a way, right? They have their assets here. They have cash flows. They have goals for the future that they want to achieve. Can they do that? How best should they do it? Do they have a good plan, or should they tweak it in some way? Maybe in a major way. What are the trade-offs here? So there's a thought process that would go on in each of those that kind of holds true. And I would say that was, a large degree of what carried us through. We didn't have anyone to follow, really. We didn't come from, anybody who's doing private client work. So we didn't just come with, a bunch of clients and just start doing what we were doing before. We had to build it from scratch. And so there's a lot of learning that had to go on. And we did join professional networks, Garrett Planning Network being one that I'd mentioned. And there are others that we're part of, that we could learn from, the experiences of people who are doing, say, fee-only financial planning in the United States and try to use some of those principles. But, there's also a lot of new ground we had to learn. So there's a lot of sweat equity. And we were able to do it because we had been pretty successful in our previous life in equity research. We had, we had really saved and invested. And we had that as
like you're applying, you were living the principles that you were largely trying to instill in your clients.
yeah, I suppose. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Mhm. So, I mean, if I were to ask you to summarize in one paragraph how you perceive the service that you're offering to individuals, how would you do that?
Okay, so I'd say we provide ongoing financial planning, financial decision-making support, and investment advisory to expatriates who are based largely in Thailand and Southeast Asia, although some are further afield. And by financial planning, I mean we help look at cash flow over the rest of their lives. How is that going to work for them, given their assets, given their hopefully expected, future assets maybe, and what they hope to do with it. And we try to run scenarios. Best case is obviously nice to look at, but worst case is what we might focus on. What could go wrong, and what should they think about in terms of trade-offs. That's the financial planning part of it. The financial decision-making support is going to be more along the lines of a specific decision they might make as they're working with us. And, you can think of very simply, should I buy this house? Or should I buy this house as an investment? That might be a specific decision. How does that influence the rest of what I'm trying to do here? And we can give, analysis on that, make recommendations, and have a discussion about that kind of a specific decision. And then investment advisory is we I think all kind of tend to look at it as you have money to invest. How do you best do that? And that obviously is our forte from the CFA. So we have quite a lot of experience in investment advisory, and that is often the cornerstone of a lot of people's finances.
All right. So the first word I heard there that I think is significant is the word ongoing. It sounds like you're positioning yourself as sort of an ongoing or almost permanent partner in, achieving financial, shall I use the word financial rationality?
Yeah, financial success, success, not running out of money over your life. Yeah, the ongoing nature of it is financial planning itself is an ongoing process, right? It's unfortunately can't be met with just the sale of a product. It's really something that goes on over time. And so what we do is we work with our clients over time. We learn quite a lot about them and what they're hoping to achieve, and their whatever is specific to their situation, and everybody's situation is different, as you might guess. And so it's not permanent isn't really a word I'd use here, but obviously things change. It doesn't always make sense to continue on, but we hope that we're adding value for our clients, and that's what we strive to do. And of course, they're fairly compensating us. And so we hope that we've created what we call a win-win situation where it can go on because it works. It works for both parties, and people are happy to continue. So that's the ongoing nature. If you just do it as one-time piece of advice, our experience has been that hasn't worked as well for people. Our clients have generally not been able to, new decisions, things are changing. It's not enough. You can create a 100-page plan, but they're not going to be able to enact it on a one-time basis. So the ongoing nature is very helpful.
This is obviously something that people have a lot of trouble doing generally. Financial planning, investing, thinking rationally about their finances. Do you agree with that, first of all, that this is something that people presumptively have difficulty with?
Yeah, I'd say that there are, things about our makeup as human beings. We tend to focus too much on the short term. We tend to focus and underestimate what can be done over the long term. And so long term is the planning nature of it. And I would say that, yeah, it's kind of baked into us as humans, I think.
I once heard it said that people always overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. Would you, I assume, agree with that?
I like that. Yeah, I do like that quotation. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, it really seems to me that you're offering something where people desperately, desperately need help. And I like the fact that you're doing it on sort of a fee-based basis. So you're not a commission base. You don't get any commissions from anything you sell. You don't have any client assets under direct management, I think. Is that correct?
We advise on assets, and we are able to see the portfolio assets through working with Morningstar and the different custodians we work with. But we don't manage assets. So our clients are always, and by manage I mean we're not the decision maker. The client is.
You're the
We
advice and help them and talk it through with them.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Answer their questions. Yeah.
So I mean, I think you're providing a very very, very valuable thing for people generally. And as I expressed my opinion, I think this is something that people do have a lot of trouble with. What do you think, if I were to ask you for two or three of the mistakes that people consistently make that make financial planning so much more difficult for them? I mean, what would be the things that people just as human beings consistently seem to not get right?
Yeah. The first one, obviously, procrastination, just putting it off. We would say the best time to start is now. And even if you've never done anything, you shouldn't put it off further. Just start, get started. That's important.
Even if it's a high market,
Oh, yeah. It doesn't, there are things that you can do. It doesn't matter where the market is. The market is immaterial. And basically, for your own finances, getting started on financial planning today and investment as well. But you don't have to put all your money in the most expensive tech stock out there. You would diversify. Obviously, there are many principles of investing that you would follow that can be adjusted. Whatever your asset allocation is should be adjusted depending on markets. But procrastination, that's a big mistake that people make. Don't, just get started. It's time to start. Having an idea of what you spend. This is on the financial planning side. I think, again, human nature, we're all optimistic. Oh, I don't really spend that much, really. People don't really seem to have necessarily a good grasp of how much they spend. And they're often very optimistic. Oh, I spend so little. And then when you look at it over time, you begin to realize, no, actually people spend quite a bit more than that. And so that's definitely one that, that I suggest people get a budget and figure out what they spend. At first, it's a bit of a drag, but it pays off in spades over time. Having a clear idea of what your spending is. And then you can make good decisions. Do I really need, this or that? Perhaps I would rather have something different. And what are the trade-offs? Certain decisions, finite decisions too, often people will make very important decisions rather cavalierly. They might spend too much on a house, right? Without really thinking about what the consequences are to their long-term planning. So you want to look at what are the big decisions you're making, and try to make them wisely. And we certainly try to help people make good decisions. If they do invest, learning about investing, I think, is very important. It's something we spend a lot of time with our clients on, discussing what works and what doesn't work.
Investing? How do they do that?
Well, there are a lot of good books out there that we recommend. They can read blogs. We've written a lot of articles about investing in general, not giving specific advice, but in general, what works and what doesn't work. There's some great titles out there. They can work with an advisor like us that, we will help people. You get an education in investing if you work with us. We start from the beginning with a conversation about risk and returns and asset allocation and how best to structure their investments and why, right? And that goes on the entire time they might work with us. So if they prefer to read a book and try, they could certainly do that. There are a lot of good books out there.
Would be,
but
two important principles of investing, just that you would say?
One of the very first ones is understanding the difference between speculating and investing. So much that you will see on television, on the financial news channels, is going to be about speculating, really about taking short-term punts based on short-term market volatility, trying to capitalize on greed and fear in the market, trying to time the market. That is not what we call investing. We call that speculating. So investing is investing for the long term, looking at economic returns. Can't time the market and accept that whatever happens in the marketplace is not forecastable. None of us have that crystal ball as much as we wish we did. And so you have to set up your portfolio so that it works in good times and in bad. Diversification is very, very important as a part of that. So understanding the difference between speculating and investing, and then making sure that you are following, a strategic plan that you've come up with, asset allocation, and then making good decisions along the way.